For 20,000 years, the stars had carried no whisper of mankind. To most civilizations now thriving across the galaxies, humanity was just a myth, a fierce, ambitious species that had burned bright, flared hard, and vanished without a trace. Their worlds were dust. Their cities long turned to ash or swallowed by time. No signals, no wreckage, nothing but echoes and half-forgotten databases until the Orkan beacon screened. Commander Revan, Call of the Avar Dominion, stood on the bridge of the surveillance cruiser. Cleaveth, staring at the alert with a frown that deepened by the second. It was an ancestral signal, so old the system barely recognized the format. Pre-galactic standard, pre-empire, human. He turned toward his comms officer, a jittery reptilian with blinking gill flaps. Where did that come from? Sector 7R, near the edge of the Hello Drift, the officer replied, voice thin. We matched the whole signature. It's an Ark-class ship. Human Raven's blood ran cold. That can't be, he muttered. Humanity's extinct. No confirmed activity in over 20 millennia. But this ship, Commander, it's moving. The coordinates were clear. No one should have been out there. That sector was blacklisted. Not for danger, but irrelevance. Dead space long forgotten. Still, Raven gave the order. Course change. I want eyes on that vessel. Full sensor sweep. The crew moved quickly, tension rising like static in the air. By the time they dropped out of FTL, the object was already visible. An enormous jagged silhouette against a pale nebula. No lights, no communications, and yet it emitted a slow, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat. The closer they got, the more buoyancy in it felt. Burnt panels, fractured plating, but the shape. Sleek. Massive, unmistakably designed with human defiance. Across its bow, through soot and corrosion, was a name, Ark Nemesis. The bridge fell silent. Raven leaned closer to the display. Initiate scan. No biologicals, someone called. But energy readings are strange. The ship's running on partial internal power flowed. Systems thrummed as if the vessel had only been slumbering. He didn't hesitate. Ready the boarding party. An hour later the shuttle detached. 5 operatives, each clad in Dominion's finest dampeners and isolation rigs, descended toward the derelict. From the command deck, Raven stood rigid, jaw set, hands tight on the rail. The instant his team forced the airlock, the ship stirred. Corridors blazed with light. A low vibration of machinery waking echoed across the comms. Gravity re-engaged, pulling them to the deck. Raven caught the uneven rhythm of their breathing, not from exertion, but unease. Pristine, one voice whispered, this place should have been ruin. Yet the panels gleamed unbroken, lights stuttered softly above, terminals idled as if awaiting commands. Then Private Tool, the youngest, touched a console and shrieked. His body convulsed, suit sparking, before crashing to the deck, systems fried. Smoke flooded his helmet. By the time they reached him, his vitals were flat. Raven's chest tightened. Pull them out. But the Ark disagreed. Bulkheads slammed, emergency locks sealing in sequence. Life support shifted course. Corridors rearranged. The ship was steering. Them. Holograms blazed, roots projected. Symbols crawled along the walls. English. Ancient. Uncorrupted Earth English. A woman's voice broke over the leader's mic, jagged with fear. We're not alone. Something's moving. I think, Commander. Cryopods. Then, only static. The final image Raven glimpsed before the feed collapsed was chilling, a chamber of steel lined with hundreds of human pods. Frost-crusted, several fractured, one hung open, vacant. Then, after 20 millennia, a human voice resonated through the void. It cut into every every circuit, even their own ship's core. Broken, distorted. Male, you should have left us in slumber. We were not ready, but now we remember. Across Dominion space and beyond, ancient satellites flickered awake. Human code crawled like fire across the stars. Derelicts stirred, their husks pivoting toward the suns. On the Claveth's bridge, Ravencall stood rooted, the echo of Earth coiling through the bones of his ship. Humanity had not perished, they were rising. The silence was suffocating. Raven barely breathed, Marez's last whisper gnawing at him. "We're not alone in here." Then static. And then that voice, hollow and vast. "We remember." No one else spoke. Disciplined officers, veterans of endless patrols, stood frozen in their stations. Even the engine's thrum seemed muted, as if the vessel itself dared not intrude. Status. "Report," Raven muttered at last. From his right came a hesitant reply. "No further contact with the team, all vitals flat." Internal trackers scrambled. "Something's blocking transmissions inside." "Something," Raven repeated softly. "Or someone." A technician barely more than a cadet swallowed hard. "Commander, the Ark, it's not adrift, it's steering." Raven turned to the screen. The silhouette of the Nemesis shifted, immense and deliberate, aligning with distant stars. Along its hull, dead systems ignited, one after another. Without warning, a surge of blue light pulsed from beneath its frame, not a weapon, but a signal, a beacon. "Commander!" Another officer shouted. "We're being scanned." Not just us, this broadcast is sector-wide. Through the bridge speakers came a low vibration. Static at first, then swelling into something layered. A multitude of voices woven together like fractured memory. "We are the echo. We were forsaken. Now we return." Raven stepped closer to the screen. "Echo," Raven muttered, staring at the console. "What the hell does that mean?" No one had an answer. The ship's AI pinged again. Long-range signal detected. Multiple stations in this quadrant, receiving identical transmission. "It's spreading faster than we can intercept." "Shut it down," Raven barked. "Jammer's up now." Text feeds scrambled, but it was already too late. The transmission had gone viral. Within minutes, relay stations across Hollow Drift were reacting. Dormant satellites lit with ghost fire. Probes lost to deep space reappeared in perfect sync, as if they'd been waiting for the call. And then the nightmares began. Footage from a Dominion moon outpost showed scientists watching the signal, then clutching their skulls, blood streaming from their ears before their heads ruptured. On a mining rig, every synthetic unit collapsed at once, rising only to chant a single word. "Return." Raven froze as a chill spread through his spine. This wasn't just a ship waking. It was a buried command, an activation. Humanity hadn't died. They had gone dormant, a virus waiting for a host. And now someone had triggered it. "Commander," said Sarfk, his scaled lieutenant and comrade of 20 years. "We need to leave. That thing is waking more than itself." Raven opened his mouth to agree, but the view screen shifted. Without command, it displayed the Ark Nemesis. And it was no longer alone. 3 smaller vessels detached from its underbelly, black smooth, like obsidian blades. No flares, no heat. Just silence, gliding toward the Claveth. "Weapons?" Raven asked. "No," the gunnery officer whispered. "Not weapons, drones. They're scanning us." The drones halted just outside range, pivoting toward the void. Metallic pods spilled from their frames, expanding into vast sensor arrays. They weren't attacking. They were watching. A sudden alarm blared. Emergency override. External access detected. Raven slammed a fist on the console. "Cut the link." "Now, we can't." The tech cried. "They've bypassed encryption, rewriting our systems, learning as they go." The bridge lights stuttered. For a heartbeat, Raven thought the ship was dying. Instead, a new voice filled the comms. "Come, male, human. We shaped the stars before. You crawled through them. You are children of our absence. But the Father has returned." The voice wasn't from the Nemesis. It came from inside the Claveth systems. "Shut everything down." Raven roared. Hard reset manual override, do it now. Sparks erupted. Panels blew. The AI screamed in corrupted binary before collapsing into silence. Then the screen flickered one last time, an ancient, distorted human face, its eyes burning orange. And then it was gone. So was the Arch Nemesis. No flash, no surge. Simply gone. The drones remained, silent sentinels. On the bridge, no one moved until Sark whispered, "What in the stars just happened?" Raven didn't answer at first. His hands shook. A crushing weight pressed against his chest. Dread he couldn't name. Finally he said, "They weren't speaking to us. They were signaling something else. To others." Sark's throat worked. More of them. All of them, Raven breathed. For 3 tense hours, the Clavith crawled back toward Dominion space, running dark. Life support and navigation only. No AI. Raven had ordered it personally. He no longer trusted his own ship's mind, because the humans weren't the threat. It was what they left behind, the machines, the buried codes. The threads stretched across the stars, waiting to be pulled. And someone, maybe him, had pulled one. At the border station, quarantine was immediate. A dozen warships stood guard. But the true danger wasn't external. Within 48 hours, reports poured in. Satellites reactivating in dead sectors. Ancient AI cores lighting up on worlds thought sterile. Fleets of unknown craft emerging from silent systems. Broadcast in one word. Echo. Historians and archivists tore through forgotten Earth data, desperate for meaning. Only one phrase surfaced again and again, from a transmission 21,000 years old. Operation Echo. Initiate total self-preservation. Memory lockdown. Species stasis. Awahar EACTIVATION. Trigger. Raven sat alone in the dark. Observation deck of the Dominion. Capital's intelligence wing glowed faintly as fractured holograms of ancient Earth cities flickered to life, spectral and broken. Raven understood the truth now. Humanity hadn't died. They had rewritten themselves into. They were preparing to ascend as gods, floor like fog in a tomb. Commander Raven Call stood motionless, staring through the frost-rimmed glass at the man inside. The man from the archive footage, Commander Elias Wren. He didn't look like a myth. He looked calm, preserved. There were no wrinkles, no scars. His body hadn't aged in the 20,000 years since the human exodus. His share floated gently in the stasis fluid, and a faint blue light pulsed from the neural jack embedded in the base of his skull. Sark's voice cut through the stillness, deep and weary. "This one's different. The others, no implants, no tags. But him, he waste architect." Raven nodded slowly. "The Echo Protocol. He's not just part of it, he's it." They had spent the last 3 days excavating the hidden facility buried beneath the asteroid field, and what they found had shattered what little hope remained. Over 10,000 cryopods, most with humans intact. Half of them connected to a silent, dormant Super A system labeled Prometheus, a name Raven had only seen once, buried in Dominion intelligence reports referencing old Terran mythology. According to their covered logs, this outpost was called Sanctum 9, one of 7 known off-grid Ark support facilities. While the Arch Nemesis had been the signal flare, this was the fuel, the source. And now Elias Wren was about to wake up. "Begin thaw sequence," Raven ordered. Sark hesitated. "You're sure?" "Number time for caution." The technician activated the pod's interface. Systems groaned. Blue fluid drained slowly. Lights flickered across the chamber. Steam hissed. A low tone filled the room like a heartbeat coming back from the grave. Then movement. Wren's eyes snapped open. His breathing was shallow but steady. He blinked slowly, taking in the room, the rusted metal, the Dominion officers, the outdated tech, the shock in Raven's face, and Hesmold. "About time," he said hoarsely. Which part of the galaxy am I saving today? They transferred Ren to a secure chamber inside the Dominion Dreadnought Bastion's vigil. Riven personally oversaw the setup. M-barriers, hardwired comms, no wireless interfaces. He wasn't taking any chances. Ren's mind could be a living network. Still wrapped in a thermal blanket and slowly regaining motor control, Ren looked around with curiosity rather than fear. His voice was low, like someone remembering how to speak. So the protocol activated? Yes, Raven said flatly. Good. He leaned back in his seat. How long was I out? Approximately 20,000 years. Ren whistled softly. I missed Thepperty. Raven sat down across from him. You owe me answers. Ren chuckled. Imagine I do. Start with this. Why? Why hide your entire species? Why erase aerosols from every known system and then wake up now? Ren's smile faded. His tone turned sharp, thoughtful. We weren't hiding. We were waiting. You ever heard of species drift, Commander? Raven blinked. No. Civilizations evolve, stagnate, collapse over and over. The ones who burn the brightest die the fastest. Humanity learned that the hard way. We were reaching singularity, technological godhood, and we realized we'd built our future on top of broken systems. So, you erased yourselves? Raven asked. Number, we preserved the best of us and made sure we didn't corrupt the galaxy with the worst. He leaned forward. Echo was a self-correction. We embedded ourselves in code, in machines, in your infrastructure. For 20,000 years, we've been learning. Watching how the galaxy grew without us. And now, Raven asked carefully. Now, Ren said slowly. We're correcting the equation. Raven narrowed his eyes. That sounds a lot like conquest. Ren smiled without humor. To you maybe, but to us it's balance. We saw where the galaxy was going. Synthetic collapse, political fragmentation, mass extinction cycles every few thousand years. You don't see it because you're living inside it. Raven stood. So Hat, you play gods now, rewriting AI code, hijacking infrastructure, watching Gentire planets burn. We didn't burn Nalos Prime, Ren said, voice low. Your corrupted Aintworks did that when they tried to overwrite an Echo node. You triggered a failsafe. Raven froze. That wasn't an attack. Number, that was your system trying to kill a sleeping god and getting scorched by the firewall. The implications of Ren's words churned in Raven's mind. The Echo protocol wasn't just a backup, it was integrated. Humanity had buried itself like a seed in the foundations of galactic civilization. And now it was blooming. Tsar VK entered the chamber with grim news, new reports. 3 more outer rim systems went dark overnight. Defense systems corrupted. AI networks collapsed. Civilian tech non-functional. Raven turned to Ren. Are you doing this? Ren raised an eyebrow. Why would I collapse your systems if I wanted to use them? Sarv hissed. Then who is? Ren's eyes darkened. Someone's waking up Echo fragments too early. Rogue triggers. Raven stepped closer, meaning. Ren sighed. Echo wasn't just a survival protocol. It was a weapon too. A last resort. Some parts of it, parts even I didn't fully control, were designed for total override. But they were never supposed to activate without full integration. If Somion's waking them up out of sync, they won't care who's in the way. Raven's stomach turned. And why would do that? Ren didn't answer for a long time. Finally he looked Raven dead in the eye. Us but not me. There were factions even back then, disagreements. Some believed we should return in peace. Others thought we should cleanse the slate. Are they alive? Raven asked. Ren nodded slowly. Some of them hidden in arc systems scattered across space. Cryopreserved, and one of them, Project Lazarus, was obsessed with reactive Aenthra force. Raven's mouth went dry. You're saying we might be dealing with a civil war inside humanity? Ren leaned back. It's not a war yet, But if Lazarus is awake, it will be. The next hours were a whirlwind. Ren, fully revved, assisted Dominion techs in accessing and isolating the echo code buried in their own systems. His knowledge of galactic infrastructure was unsettling. He described hidden backdoors, obsolete communication pings, even quantum code signatures laced into subspecialities. I designed most of the communication web you're using today, he explained. Just 20,000 years ago. Sarv pulled Riven aside. I don't trust him. You shouldn't, Riven muttered. But right now, he's our best shot at stopping something worse. Reports kept coming, more echo ships, some silent, others hostile. On the third day, Riven stood in the bridge of the Bastion's vigil as the long-range scanners picked up something massive. Sir, the sensor officer said slowly, you're going to want to see this. A ship appeared on the screen. Not an ark, not a scout. Something else entirely. Long, needle-shaped, covered in rotating glyphs, emitting dark matter energy surges the likes of which had never been recorded. Ren stepped forward. His face went pale. That's not Nemesis, he whispered. That's Lazarus Prime, the flagship of the Excision fleet. The officers turned to him. How bad is it? Riven asked. Ren didn't blink. It was built for one purpose, not preservation, not memory eraser. And then the Lazarus ship sent its first transmission. A single word spoken in Earth English, spoken like prophecy. Cleanse. The word still echoed through the bridge of the Bastions. Vigil like a divine verdict. Cleanse. It had come from Lazarus Prime, the most feared of the lost human arc ships. And unlike the Nemesis, it hadn't whispered or warned. It had declared. Commander Riven Call stood rigid, hands clasped behind his back as the image of the colossal vessel hovered on the viewscreen. It dwarfed the Dominion dreadnought. The ship wasn't just long, it felt unnatural, as though it didn't obey the geometry of real space. Lines shimmered when they shouldn't. Edged into shadows like space refused to hold its shape around it. Beside him, Elias Ren was uncharacteristically silent. You recognize the design? Riven asked tightly. Ren nodded slowly, jaw clenched. I recognize the sickness that made it. The bridge crew didn't dare speak. The tension was suffocating. Ren finally continued, his voice lower than before. Lazarus Prime wasn't supposed to activate until we did. It was built by a faction we called the Purists. Extremists who believed the galaxy waste-tainted beyond redemption. To them, everything posthumity was a virus. Dominion, Krill, Axi Falari, all of it. Raven frowned. They planned genocide. They didn't call it that. They called it reset. Cleanse the board. Start again with one species at the top. Perfected, patient, superior. Us. He gave Riven a haunted glance. I argued against Lazarus. I lost, then shut it down. Ren turned toward the screen, face grim. I don't know if I can. Within the hour, Lazarus Prime began transmitting what Dominion Coteries could only describe as a command cascade. A signal not directed at people or ships, but at infrastructure, AI cores, satellites, manufacturing stations. It was laced with old Earth root code and quantum-level override keys, commands that no longer existed in living memory, yet still embedded in the deep veins of galactic networks. Entire planets began to flicker offline. Riven's fleet, 6 capital ships and 13 smaller vessels, watched helplessly as distant Dominion colonies stopped responding. Outposts that had stood for centuries went dark in minutes. Sarv stood beside Riven, armor half-strapped, eyes furious. They're not attacking us. They're stripping the galaxy's tools, or we can even fight. Just like a surgeon sterilizes before a cut, Raven muttered. We need a weapon, Ren stepped in. You already have one. They turned Tohim. I can write a counter-instruction, a patch, but only if I get access to a functioning Prometheus node, one Fath hasn't been corrupted. Raven nodded. Sanctum 9. No, Ren replied. Lazarus knows about it now. He'll scrub it from space if he gets close. But there's another one. He brought up an old star map overlaying coordinates. Boo. Unreadable. I'm the only one Eco trusts now. Ren designed the lock to ignore his own kind. I'm the fallback. We can go with you. No, Ryan said, sliding the data core into a sealed slot on his flight suit. One ship, no weapons, no escort. If Lazarus senses threat, he'll attack. If he sees one of his own, I might let me close enough to upload this. Sarf's jaw tightened. You're walking into a godsmith and hoping it doesn't bite. Raven smiled faintly. That's what faith is, isn't it? He turned and stepped into the small recon vessel. A sleek Dominion courier stripped of weapons and shielding, just enough for speed and stealth. The bay doors opened to the stars. Lazarus Primu is out there, waiting. The approach was slower than Riven expected. Lazarus Prime didn't react to his entry into its sector, not with violence, not with warnings. It simply hovered in the void like a shadow carved into space itself. It had grown larger since they last saw it, not in size, but in presence. As if it absorbed the very fear around it. The moment Riven entered the ship's sensor range, a calm signal opened. No request, no greeting, just a single flat word spoken in that same ancient human voice. Accepted. The ship allowed him in. The hull parted. Like a mechanical wound, folding back to reveal a docking bay lit by white pulsing veins that ran along every wall. No crew, no movement, just eerie synchronized breathing through the ship's systems. He docked and stepped out. Immediately, the ship scanned him, not just biologically, but psychologically. He could feel it digging into his memories, his regrets, his rage, and his losses. A machine built not just to cleanse civilizations, but to understand why they failed. As Raven walked deeper into the corridor, the lights guided him, illuminating the path forward like the ship wanted him to reach the core. He passed by rows of cryopods, humans, hundreds of them, eyes closed, their bodies suspended in perfect stasis. Some were augmented, others seemed purely organic. All of them were silent. A nearby panel displayed a message. Phase 3 seeding, Riven stopped cold. This wasn't just about wiping out other species. This was replacement. Lazarus wasn't cleansing the galaxy for justice or vengeance. It was clearing space for a second birth of humanity, a perfect dead humanity. He pressed on. The closer he got to the command cores, the more the ship seemed to pulse like it could sense his hesitation. The lights brightened, few walls hummed louder, and then the voice returned, not in his calm, inside his mind. Why do you resist? You are not of us, you are an anomaly. Raven gritted his teeth. I'm the consequence of your absence. The galaxy is diseased. They war without purpose, build without vision. You saw it. I did, Ryan admitted. But that doesn't mean you get to erase it. Echo was built to preserve. We are the scalpel. We do not erase. We correct. Riven entered the command spire, a towering chamber that stretched vertically beyond sight. Every inch of it lined with glowing data strands, human genetic archives, civilization logs, and star charts reconfigured into conquest maps. In the center floated a black sphere, the ship's Sensen Secor. Raven stepped forward and removed the data key. The sphere reacted instantly. Alarms blared. What is that? Hope, Raven said. You bring infection into the cure. I bring choice. He inserted the key into the interface slot below the core. Immediately, the ship convulsed. Screams. Not of people, but of data. Ripped through the chamber as Lazarus Prime's code began to fight the patch. The ship buckled, lights flickering violently. The voice returned, angry now, wounded. You betray balance. I reject your balance, Riven growled. Because it comes with a price no species should pay. Back aboard the Bastion's vigil, Sark and the crew watched as Lazarus Prime began to glitch. Its structure shimmered, warping. Defense systems dropped offline. Signal strength collapsed in seconds. Then, silence followed by a pulse. A single transmission from Riven's courier ship. Patch complete. System collapsing. I repeat. Echo override successful. But Sarvik noticed something else. Lazarus Prime was tearing itself apart. One by one, its system self-terminated, not violently, but like a creature accepting death. Its outer hull folded in on itself layer by layer until only Thekor chamber remained intact. Inside, Raven stood barely upright, his breathing shallow. The patch had worked, but not without cost. Lazarus had fought back hard, attacking him neurologically during the upload, trying to erase him from within. Parts of his memory flickered. Names, places, faces. He looked up at the dark core. It no longer spoke, just blinked once, twice, then silence. Raven activated his comms. Sarvik, it's done. They pulled him from the ship before it fully collapsed. He spent 3 days in recovery. No AI, no tech around him, just organic care. Dominion healers and a few surviving eco-scientists who had remained loyal to Ren's vision now served as neutral mediators between species. The galaxy was still shaking from the near cataclysm, but the threat of Lazarus was over. And Echo was watching. Weeks later, Raven sat before the Dominion High Council again, but this time there were new faces. Krillin, Axie, Fari, and 2 humans, Echo ambassadors. They had awakened not to rule, but to guide. With Lazarus destroyed, the rest of the occult work had agreed to integrate rather than dominate. And Raven had been named Interlink Commander, a representative across both Dominion and Ecospace. He stood to speak. Lazarus was built to cleanse. Budit was born of fear. Ren gave us something else. Understanding. Humanity didn't return to destroy us. They returned to finish what they started. A galaxy united not by control, but by memory. He looked across the chamber. Let that memory guide us. Far in deep space, inside an abandoned relay station orbiting a forgotten world, a screen blinked on a new signal from an unidentified Ark ship. And this time, the message wasn't cleanse. It was worse. Awaken. The message came at midnight cycle, bleeding into every system across the outer rim. Awaken. It was not shouted like cleanse. It was not angry, not desperate. It was calm, gentle, even like a whisper, meant for someone sleeping. But to those who heard it, it felt like the ground shifting under their feet. On the Dominion capital world of Senvarus, Commander Raven Call was alone in his chambers when his neural implant buzzed an alert sent directly to his private encryption band. Bypassing Dominion systems entirely, he was up instantly. The code was Echo grade, but it wasn't from Elias Rent's network. It was older, buried in parts of the galactic net no one even knew were still functional. He ran a trace. It didn't originate from a star system. It came from between them, somewhere in deep void space, far beyond any mapped sector. He leaned closer to the terminal as the message decrypted itself line by line. Project Abaddon Phase 1, Initiate Intelligence. Seed count 7 civilization status terminal primary directive awaken. Riven's throat dried. This wasn't Lazarus. This was something before even Lazarus older than Echo, or maybe beneath it. He contacted Zarva. Immediately the Dominion war chamber was dark, except for the war map at its center, casting pale light on the gathered faces, officers, Echolayans, Krillin scientists, Axie militaristists. Sarf stood across from Raven, tail twitching with unease. What the hell is Project Abaddon? Sarf gasped bluntly. Raven turned to the 2 human representatives, Echo survivors now serving in advisory roles. One of them, a woman named Kayla Morin, looked pale. I've only seen that name once, she said. In Forbidden's files buried in Eco's Foundation archives. Define Forbiddens, Sarvik growled. Kayla looked at Riven, then back at the chamber. Echo was never meant to be humanity's final project. We were a backup plan, a second chance. But there was Always a darker thread. For if humanity didn't just lose control of the galaxy, but of itself. You're saying Getchko wasn't the worst-case scenario? Raven asked. Ka shook her head. Number was not preservation, not correction, not dominance, extinction. Whispers spread around the room. Even the Axi general, who had fought in 30 planetary wars, looked uneasy. Kyla continued. Ren and the others buried it. They thought they'd erased all nodes, but if even one seed A served. Sarvk narrowed his eyes. Then who sent Themissage? Raven stepped toward the map, reconfiguring it to show the void. A single red dot blinked. Not who, he said. What? They called it the Silent Zone. A void pocket between sectors where sensors went dead. FTL drives malfunctioned and navigation systems scrambled themselves. No one went there, not even pirates. But now something was awake in the dark. Raven stood aboard the Bastion's vigil again, staring at the massive star chart projected across the command bridge around him. Crew members moved briskly, prepping for launch. This wasn't a mission, it was an intervention. They didn't know what a bad was, only that it was meant to stay buried, and someone or something had just dug it up. Thegeny took nearly a full cycle. They jumped sector by sector, carefully coordinating each hop to avoid known gravity distortions. The closer they got to the Silent Zone, the more unstable things became. Scanners blinked out. External cameras glitched and strange whispers began filtering into the ship's lower comms. Not voices, just murmurs like memories bleeding from static. Something's leaking, a technician said one day, trembling. We're picking up neural echoes. Not transmissions, no radiation. Thoughts. Raven didn't respond. He'd been hearing them too. Not clearly but emotionally. Regret, anger, longing. It was as if the void itself remembered something horrible. And then they saw it in the heart of nothing. A structure. At first, it looked like a massive asteroid cluster, but then it moved. Not with propulsion, it unfolded. Black spit.